Welcome back, my friends, to live coverage of Mythic Championship VI, live from Richmond, Virginia, in the United States of America. My name is Riley Knight, joined by Eduardo Sage Gallic, and Eduardo, we're going to jump right into round number 5. Of course, we've already got underway with Standard, and we're going to get even further underway as we head down to our feature match table. Thomas Hendriks is facing off against Gregg Keithly. You can see the Dutch juggernaut on the left-hand side of your screen there, deftly stroking his chin. And on the right, Gregg Keithly, who, by my estimation, is on Gruul Aggro.
Yeah, as Gruul as you can be. Not the fancy Gruul adventures that you've kind of alluded to in the previous game. Wait, wow, Gregg is down to very few cards.
Oh no, he's taken a mulligan to -4 here by the look of things. Hendriks, however, got a nice full grip. Hendriks is on Selesnya Adventures. This is a deck we've already seen in the feature match area, Eduardo.
Yeah, and we might see it win again.
Is that your hot take? Volcanic hot take. Keithly mulligans to -1 million, and Hendriks all of a sudden the favorite.
Yeah, more than that, it's because Hendriks has access in hand to the card Giant Killer. Now, we thought that was good against Embercleave. Now, it really shines against the Gruul deck.
I mean, it's basically just a Doomblade in that situation, right?
It's Doomblade Plus.
It kills nearly everything, right? Including Bony G. Here it is, Bone Crusher Giant. But, oh, what is this card? Actual literal raise the alarm, Eduardo.
I mean, Thomas probably went, you know what? I need a little more fuel for those venerated Loxodons.
For that March of the Multitudes. And raise the alarm is the play here from the Dutchman.
It's just glue. Like, it's not the best card for sure in the deck.
Is it not? No, come on. Come on, Eduardo, we've got you in here for your expert analysis. You can't feed us, you can't feed us rubbish like that.
It is not the best card.
Oh, well, that's what you say, but I see a Love-Struck Beast in the Adventure Zone, my dude. I see a Love-Struck Beast, and Raise the Alarm seems like a very powerful combination with that.
This is why...
Ah, there it is. There we go. All right, Raise the Alarm into Venerated Loxodon. Thomas Hendriks, the Flying Dutchman.
You just didn't specify for who the alarm was. The elephant's up now.
The elephant.
It has awoken.
Up and out of bed. Not going to forget to turn off the alarm now as this 4-4 rumbles into the battlefield and kind of puts Keithly's board to shame. Even after the curve of Zertar Goblin into Bony G here. I mean, let's see if Keithly has got anything to work with. Just another Bone Crusher Giant in hand. I mean, picking off a 2/2 token doesn't feel good with Stomp.
No. And you're trading with Venerated Loxodon. You're essentially trading down on this whole process. You're down already to a mulligan, which seemed like a mulligan to 4. And on top of that, you're trading. That's horrible.
It's very bad. It's very bad, not gaining the value that you want to get off a card like Bone Crusher Giant. Now, Love-Struck Beast for Hendriks, even with all of those supposed 1/1s, it's actually just a 5/5 defender, basically, now.
It's incredibly good in the matchup for exactly that reason. It's a 5/5 body.
Well, that's what I was alluding to, the fact that often you want to be able to rumble with this 5/5, but when it comes down against a deck like Gruul Aggro, all of these 4-power creatures, everything, all below, all the way from Zertar Goblin to Bone Crusher Giant to what have you, Love-Struck Beast just sits there and blocks everything. It blocks everything.
It dominates the board, and Giant Killer takes care of anything that it may not. So yeah, on top of that, Thomas Hendriks has Giant Killer, Shepherd of the Flock to rebuy the Giant Killer, and I just don't see how Gregg gets out of this one.
Yeah, Hendriks has got a nice full toolbox here. We're going to see Giant Killer, a very on-theme use of that card there.
Oh yeah, I like the thematic. You're right. You're absolutely correct.
Killing a giant as it did, and then being put into play as a 1/2. Back to Keithly now, who's sitting on, I think, just stone nothing. Not a position you want to be in.
Yeah, I'm looking at Gregg, the deck, and there's just no.
I think, but Hendriks now just wants to get in the front foot, right?
You got cards.
Maybe tap down that Goblin, get in for a nice 6 damage, or maybe he's going to continue to develop his board instead here.
Yeah, there's absolutely no rush in this spot. You could Giant Killer end of turn. You could also make your board even larger with that other Venerated Loxodon.
Okay, that's also a pretty decent option here for old mate Thomas Hendriks.
And on top of that, you still have the mana to Shepherd of the Flock if anything gets weird, although it seems that Thomas decides, you know what, I just want to make my board larger and keep the Love-Struck Beast plus the Loxodon to block. Just in case, there's something like Questing Beast that comes around.
Loxodon on the Bloxodon, in addition to the Love-Struck Beast as well. A pair of hard-hitting heavyweights here for the Dutchman. Here's a Pelt Collector. but it's going to be too little too late for Keithly, who, let's remind ourselves, mulligan to minus a Googleplex.
That's a good knowledge.
Oh, yeah. I know all about maths and numbers. Don't even worry about it. 2 plus 2, that's 4. Minus 1, that's 3. I did that pretty quickly.
What about the math here?
Well, this
That's
is 2 plus 2 plus...
through.
All right, oh, you're just showing off. You're just showing off. It's like a lot. It's just a lot. Keithly at this point can write down 20 minus a lot because he's in a world of pain. He's in a real whole heap of trouble here.
This matchup seems really hard for the Gruul deck. You have Giant Killer, Loxodon, Venerated Loxodon kind of going over the top Lovestruck Beast. Like, this does not look like a favorable matchup for the Gruul deck at all. Oh, well, on top of, you know, mulliganing to Oblivion.
Hendriks able to go wide and kind of tall at the same time with all those tokens, in addition to just the 5/5 sitting there and saying, stop right now, thank you very much. And as a result, Keith is going to pack him up. And I tell you what, I respect it. I respect the move. You got to know when to hold him and you got to know when to fold him. And Keithly recognizes that the game is over. So Thomas Hendriks picking up an early win after an unfortunate string of mulligans for his opponent. And Selesnya Adventure so far very much showing its stamping its authority, its dominance on this standard portion so far.
Selesnya Adventures is very good in board-centric matchups like these. And, I mean, it's showcasing, like, especially if you can get on the front foot and have something like Giant Killer to deal with any problem. Something like a Questing Beast or a Skargan Hellkite normally would be problems for decks of this nature. Not when you have a free mana removal spell. That's also your 1-drop, by the way.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about, not diluting that threat count. Anyway, my friends, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back live from Richmond with more Magic after this.
I'm here on the floor of Mythic Championship VI with Alexander Hayne, and we're going to get a chance to learn a little bit about what's going on in this MPL Pro's head. Let us know, Alex, how have things been for you so far this season?
Well, my season's been reasonable but not spectacular. I top 4'd the Mythic Championship in London, the second one. And other than that, haven't had any super big finishes in Mythic Championships. My MPL weekly seasons have not gone so well, so I'm looking at 15th place right now in the MPL. When 20 advance to the MPL again next year. So looking for another solid finish to kind of solidify my position there. And if I have a great finish, I get to go to Worlds, which would be huge. You know, it'd be really, really awesome to get to compete on that level again.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting that you've got, do you shoot for the moon in that circumstance? Do you go straight for, I want to be at the World Championship? Or is it more about staying in the MPL, making sure you've got a good solid position? Because as far as I can tell, being in the MPL is just awesome.
Yeah, being in the MPL is awesome. Not only there's the money from the contracts, but you just get to attend all the best tournaments and battle against like the best players in the world, which is the reason why I'm here. I love doing what I do. And so I've decided to kind of take it a bit safer and playing blue-green food, like the more tempo version with, you know, I think there's fewer like inherent weaknesses to the deck if I'm wrong about the metagame. I'm looking for a solid finish like a 10-6 or 11-5. I'd be pretty happy with, instead of risking it all to try and, you know, spike the tournament with a perfect metagame read.
All right, there we have it. We have the inside take from Alexander Hayne. Best of luck to you here at Mythic Championship VI.
Thanks, Tim.
And welcome back to the booth here at Mythic Championship number 6. We've just seen Thomas Hendriks very handily dismantle his opponent, Gregg Keithly, on table number 1. While these guys are shuffling up, getting ready for game number 2, why don't we take a live look in on one of our back tables here. We're going to have a look at our second back table here, Jens Schröter, versus Joel Sadowski. Joel Sadowski playing Simic Food, but I'm very interested to see what the Germans brought here. Esper Dance. I assume this is Dance of the Mance.
Pretty much Dance of the Mance, Doom Foretold. The deck that won the very first standard tournament back, Brian Gottlieb won it with Dance of the Mance in the first Fandom Legends that ran pretty much as Throne of Eldraine was standard legal.
Very excited to see this deck make a little bit of a resurgence. Obviously, making knights is a very worthy thing to do, and it's got very powerful cards. Teferi, of course, Time Raveler, you see there on the battlefield. Kaya's Wrath, a 4-mana sweeper. We don't see that too often in Standard. But it's Dance of the Mance, in addition to cards like Golden Egg and Guild Globe, that is the real headline act of this deck. That's the finisher.
Right, you cycle 2-mana artifacts. You get free your deck, you start raffing, and at some point you get to return a bunch of these Golden Eggs, Guild Globes, and make them 4/4s and win the game on the spot. However, you get a preview as to why you haven't seen too much Teferi Time Raveler in the format. Not very good when your option is to bounce Hydroid Krasis.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't do what it used to. Here's a Kaya's Wrath at instant speed, however, and that's going to gain Schröter alive and protect his Teferi. So that's a nice way to keep his Planeswalker active. But now he's facing down a Planeswalker that is perhaps even more threatening than his own Teferi.
Again, Nissa being able to threaten Planeswalkers turn after turn by making free lands, very important. But you might have missed it. That was incredible from Joel.
That's a huge turn.
You didn't play Nissa before combat and try to get rid of Teferi. You expected there might be a Kaya's Wrath. I'm going to play around that. I'm okay if Teferi goes to 1. And then that allowed the Nissa to make sure that you had an extra free for next turn.
And Schröter absolutely fell for the bait there. He was played like a fiddle by Sadowski, who, I mean, look at how good would a Kaya's Wrath be on this board? Insane. Blow up 2 Paradise Druids and a land? Absolutely. Sign me up for that deal.
Even the next turn's land, since Nissa would have plussed again for combat.
Exactly. This would be...
It'd be a blowout.
Well, he'd be in a world of value here with Schröter, but unfortunately for him, he pulled the trigger a little too soon. So in hand for him, I can see at least it's just 1, maybe 2 lands there. I saw a Castle Loch Thwain for sure. Here's 5 mana. What are we looking at now? Oh, it's a Cavalier of Dawn. All right, so this is gonna Elkify a
Planeswalker.
the Nissa here.
Golem artifact creature token.
Or Golemify. We're getting the correction from the German, of course. Very exact, very precise there. And then Teferi goes upstairs. So a little 3/3 replacing that Nissa. That's very much the order of the day, turning things into 3/3s. But Cavalier of Dawn leaving behind a very sizable, very respectable threat here for Schröter.
Very importantly, being a 4/6 body in front of all of this army of free-frees, and next turn Teferi gets to go for card advantage, either bouncing the land back to its original state or getting something back like a Gilded Globe and turning -3 into Divination. And that's why you see an attack with this. Joel deciding, I have to get rid of this Teferi off the battlefield since it represents too many cards. It's worth a free going away.
So the big attack now for Sadowski. And here's Castle Loch Thwain now to buffer the hand of Schröter. One of I think the best, most elegant designs of a land like this, Castle Loch Thwain, because if a land that draws you cards is always going to be dangerous, you know, in a late control deck, but one that punishes you for having a full hand, which is what control decks want to do. Really elegant design, I think.
It's essentially the nightmare version of Library of Alexandria.
Yeah. It's a really rubbish library. It's it's a library that's been out in the out in some abandoned town. The books are moldering and falling off the shelves. Exactly. And here is now Oko. And Elkifying the Cavalier of Dawn here, and in comes the Golem, offering the trade to the German now.
We're going to see this all weekend, aren't we?
I mean, Oko certainly is at unprecedented levels of dominance in Standard, and so I think this is an interaction that we are going to see time and time again. But one thing I will point out, and I hope this isn't taken as too disingenuous by the audience here, and this is as someone who I don't think I've never played an Oko Mirror in my life. Actually, I played against the card a bunch. I've never played an Oko Mirror. They're actually reasonably entertaining to watch.
For sure.
There's a lot of play to them.
Mid-range grindfests at their best.
Yeah.
But I'm more interested in tapping 6 mana for something sweet here.
Planar Cleansing is going to seal the deal. Away goes the Globe, the Guild Globe, but more importantly, away goes Oko, the Thief of Crowns, in addition to those Paradise Druids. And so now Sadowski's just playing off the top of his library, and I have to say, I'm going to favour the bloke who's got the Castle Loch Thwain active here, in addition to that Kaya's Wrath. Things looking better and better for Schröter as time goes on. He's on 13 life, so he's going to pay 3 for this card.
It's all right. Greatness at any cost.
Not quite at any cost. I mean, I think the cost of greatness sometimes is a little too high. Schröter finds a Dance of the Manse. We've not got the best idea of what's in Schröter's graveyard, but it's going to be buffered by that golden egg here.
There's a Guild Globe, and if there was a Doom Foretold, which there might be because we saw a Night Token earlier, that might be good enough. Just getting back Guild Globe and a bunch of 4/4s. That said, there's no rush. Schröter doesn't have to do anything. You can just cycle for your deck, gain life, or mana.
Nope, going to sacrifice it for mana here, and I think we're going to see a big old dance. Let's open up that dance floor. It's DJ Schroeder on the decks, cutting up on the 1s and the 2s, and Sadowski packs him up after recognizing he's got no answer to that dance of that man. So let's head back to table A now. We've already checked in with Hendriks v. Keithly. The Flying Dutchman picking up game number 1 with his Selesnya deck. And let's see if Thomas Hendriks can convert on an early win. These guys going to get underway. Little look into the camera there from Gregg Keithly, asserting dominance. Lovely to see that power move. And he's off to the races with a very strong turn 1 play in the form of Pelt Collector.
Pelt Collector, definitely the best opening for these Gruul decks. On turn, like later in the game, not really what you want, but early in the game, it can be as large as a 4/4 very rapidly, dominating board presence. And when you're on the draw against the Gruul deck, that's not normally the position you want to be in.
Paradise Druid, the follow-up play here for Keithly. That's going to beef up that Pelt Collector. Another fine addition to his collection there. And a flower. Going to find I think it was a forest there for Hendriks.
I really like Flower Flourish in these Selesnya decks. Being able to act as an over-the-top option in the late game, but fixing your mana, essentially allowing you to have more threat density in your deck.
And just keep a wider range of hands as well, which I think is really important in these low to the ground, go wide decks here.
And a really tough decision already for Thomas Hendriks. You see the pass here because the idea is that Edgewall Innkeeper plus Giant Killer can be okay, but like you want to be able to kill that questing beast with Giant Killer. So that's why we're going to see Raise the Alarm end of turn, because it sets up for the best board position depending on what Gregg does. If there's not much, you can Raise the Alarm, play a bunch of creatures and locks it on. If there's something dangerous like this questing beast, you have access to Giant Killer and if you draw land.
And that's smart play there from Hendriks, who kept the Giant Killer up to deal with that questy bee. The American getting in for 7, I think it was. But with Edgewall Innkeeper, we're in desperation mode here. Drawing cards, having to... There's the third land. All right, so we're not dead in the water just yet, says Hendriks.
And that land was super important. Without that land, that wasn't the other... That was not a Lockstone coming down. That wasn't the other Innkeeper coming down. Thomas Hendriks would have been really far behind. But now we got a 4/4. Look at that. Full value. Adding 9 power to the board.
That's a huge play. That's a huge play here from Hendriks, who managed to find a way to keep himself in this game. He was sort of beginning to fall behind a bit with that questing beast starting to rock and roll. But now a 4/4 blocker, a bunch of 1/1s being juiced up, and next turn we've got that chop down ready to go with the Giant Killer. So I really like that line from Hendriks. A little bit of a luxury, Eduardo. He did have the second Giant Killer in hand, so he had a little bit of room to play with. But finding that third land, a critical play.
That was absolutely critical. If Thomas had not drawn that land, you wouldn't have seen Venerated Loxodon, and this would have all been kind of shut down. But took the risk because when you're behind, you got to take more risks.
Oh, listen, it's that age-old adage. You know, this is the thing I was taught. First day playing Magic, got to risk it if you want to get the biscuit. And who doesn't want a biscuit? Back to Keithly now, the American considering his options. In hand, it looks like a Gruul Spellbreaker, in addition to Once Upon a Time and what looks like a Zertar Goblin. We're going to see the Goblin, and now we're going to see the Spellbreaker, I imagine. So building out his board, this is what the Gruul Dex wants to do, but the thing is here, even after these attacks, right, Hendriks just has the better value engine. If this game goes long, Edgewall Innkeeper threatens to take it over completely.
I'm just analyzing this attack. So Gregg decided to throw away a bunch of resources for damage because there are cards in the deck that can finish things off. With a block on Pelt Collector here, or even a questing beast, we're looking at, well, it's actually pretty different. If you go on Pelt Collector, that would be Thomas at 2, dying to any Bone Crusher Giant. If you block Questing Beast, the Pelt Collector grows, but at least you're at free life, and you have and you don't necessarily die to a top deck Bone Crusher Giant, or one that you believe might be in Gregg's hand. But now Gregg really looking for something like Collision Colossus. And so that point of life is really valued by Thomas.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's run those numbers. He's crunched. He's popped his bean counter visor on Eduardo, and he's found the line that's going to keep him out of stomp range here. Oh, and it looks like Keithly may have missed the trigger on his Pelt Collector. That may prove decisive as we move forward. In hand for Hendriks is that Giant Killer, highly incentivized to fire that off if he can. But without that Pelt Collector, he just doesn't have any targets. He doesn't have any targets. Back to Keithly now. Keithly considering what he wants to do here. I think he's found the Collision Colossus. And he's going to send in the Clowns. Here we go.
Yeah, and that was the hugest top deck. That Collision Colossus
Yeah.
off the top by Gregg is probably going to steal this one. Except, of course, except that here, Thomas Hendriks has access to Giant Killer and will be able to block in a profitable fashion, use Giant Killer to take down the creature that's boosted by Collision Colossus. You can just see here the shake of the head from Thomas, because to get really profitable blocks, Thomas has to accept to go down to 1 from the Zertar Goblin, but then you lose to any Bone Crusher Giant. There's 4 in the deck. There's also Once Upon a Time. So unless Thomas can really lock down the game, Bone Crusher Giant might take it down. But I think Thomas Hendriks may decide, you know what, I can't play around Bone Crusher Giant. It would already make one of these blocks truly awful.
So Hendriks on 3. He has taken a pasting here from Keithly in the early turns of the game. Looked to stabilize nicely with that that Venerated Loxodon, but the blanking of the Giant Killer in hand has been a very difficult thing for him to overcome. I think we're just going to see Colossus put on the stack here, and I can't imagine that's not going to be enough here for Keithly, who came out of the gates like a greyhound with that Pelt Collector and never really let up the pressure.
Yeah, but here, and obviously puts it on the Hexproof creature, so there's not really much that Thomas Hendriks can do here. You can't Giant Killer a creature that's got Hexproof.
So Collision Colossus being used for +4/+2, and as you say, because it's Keithly's turn, the Spellbreaker is hexproof. So Keithly has navigated around the chop down, the Giant Killer, in Hendriks' hand masterfully here.
I mean, that's going to kind of do it. There's not really much that Thomas Hendriks can do.
Yep, Hendriks is going to take lethal damage here by the look of things. And pointing out the fact that there his chop down may have been able to kill the Pelt Collector. But Keithly, as he didn't put that counter on it, ended up being a blank piece of cardboard in his hand as he went down. So an unfortunate end to that game there for Hendriks. But all the same, Keithly picks up a W in game number 2. So he'll be very happy about that, you would think, as these players hit the sideboard for one last game. We're going to get the chance to now have a look in at one of our back tables, and it's Sam Black, fan favourite Sam Black, against Garrett Hennessy. Now, Garrett Hennessy playing that 4-colour sacrifice list we already checked in with last round. That's the one with Cauldron, Familiar Witch's Oven, and a whole bunch of other support cards, including Oko, the Thief of Crowns, and Mayhem Devil. But Sam Black playing a personal favourite deck of mine here in Jeskai Fires, the Czech Cavalry.
And you might have seen this deck in the Time Walk match. Well, I mean, if you work together, you can play the same deck. But yeah, here, there's a reason to love that Jeskai Fires deck. Look at the value those Cavalier of Gales have represented.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Even without the Fires of Invention, this deck is still able to run with the big dogs here. But it's back to Hennessy now. Let's see what the Canadian is up to. Oko in hand, Gilded Goose, and Trail of Crumbs on the battlefield. So the engine is warming up here.
Yeah, Trail of Crumbs, Oko. We get to essentially get as much value as we want over time. So, and because Trail of Crumbs often gets access to land, you're essentially, like, look at this. Gilded Goose can essentially sacrifice the food and pay for Trail of Crumbs all in one.
Yes.
It's a permanent value engine.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought that a goose in an oven would have made such a combination? Oh. Wait, everyone who's eaten a roast Christmas dinner, absolutely. All right, there's the Witch's Oven as well.
Yeah, now we're cooking.
Now we're cooking even more. So Hennessy, see what his next play. He's got that Oko in hand, in addition to a Once Upon a Time. Let's see what's played here. Here's the Thief of Crowns.
It's a good time to put Oko down. Essentially, getting rid of these Cavalier of Gales over 2 turns. There's not much that Samuel Black can do to kind of go over the top. So plussing on Cavalier to prevent their ability when it dies and kind of diminishing the threat very quickly. And then once the threats are gone, Witch's Oven, Trail of Crumbs, and Mayhem Devil will really take over this game.
And Mayhem Devil, I think, are really a very sweet and kind of techie inclusion here, as we see Witch's Oven join the party, as a way to pressure planeswalkers or pressure even other creatures with without damage that comes from outside of combat.
Shark to 12.
So it looks like Hennessy setting himself up to play that once upon a time during Black's turn. You can see Black has already won game number 1 here with his Czech Cavalry Jesco Fires list.
I love, by the way, that we're playing Legacy.
In what sense? We're
Well,
brainstorming and fetching?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Yep. Cavalier of Gales with the effect we call brainstorm. It's you draw 3, then put 2 back on the top, and then you can shuffle away those 2 useless cards with a fetch land like Fabled Passage. Now, Black's hand, I don't know how exciting it is. Haven't had a good look at it. I saw a bunch of lands in there.
I think there's like a bunch of lands in a Devout Decree.
Yeah, and what also looks like another Cavalier of Gales. That's it. Yeah, 3 lands, Devout Decree, and Cavalier of Gales. Now, Devout Decree, of course, a clean answer to that Mayhem Devil. Let's see what the play is, however. It's a 2nd or a 3rd even Cavalier of Gales now for Black.
Very good here because you just get to, assuming a fetch land. Wow.
Oh, yucko. Just a whole bunch of lands off the top, in addition to a, is that a Solar Flare there? Oh, not a Solar Flare, excuse me, Solar Blaze. Solar Blaze.
You called it exactly right.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Solar Blaze might be one of the worst possible answers to Gilded Goose I've ever seen.
Yeah, outside of like Celestial Purge or something, it's pretty bad. Yeah, it's pretty bad, you're right. All right, here's that Devout Decree. That's going to exile the Mayhem Devil here.
The main thing is it's going to get rid of Oko, since that Mayhem Devil cannot block, and I don't see a Cauldron's Familiar in the graveyard. That's going to allow Samuel Black to take down Oko Thief of Crowns.
Not something we see too often with the higher loyalty of Oko, but he's going to go down to that Cavalier of Gales. However, on the front table, it looks like Hendriks and Keithly are ready to go once again. So why don't we head back to our first table?
Yeah, Oko's off, by the way. Just confirm for everybody watching. We've done it. Oko's down.
Oko down. Oko down. Score 1 for the good guys. Here we go back to now Thomas Hendriks and Gregg Keithly. These players tied up at 1-1. And we're going to kick things off with a Flower Flourish from Hendriks, who will go and grab a Forest with that first half of the card, Flower.
Yeah, and a card that could be awkward in Thomas Hendriks' hand is that Devout Decree. Can be usually quite strong against the Gruul decks, but sometimes you just face Pelt Collector and Questing Beast, and then you look at a Devout Decree. That's a good curve. Turn 2 creature, turn 3 creature, turn 4 creature.
I mean, that's all that anyone really wants in life, right?
Yeah,
just to curve out with green idiots.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Best way to go and win games of Magic.
I'd like to kill the Gilded Goose on the way.
Just good, honest, little kid Magic. Just play green creatures, turn them sideways. All right, so Hendriks, no turn 2 play for him. Or is there? Twist ending. We've seen raise the alarm cast once or twice in this game already.
Not once, not twice, but thrice.
It's going to be 3 times here as well. Now, yes, here's Pelt Collector, but raise that alarm. Time to get out of bed. Hit that snooze button. And back to Hendriks now.
Just doesn't have much power in hand.
No, that's true. Fairy Guidemother is not the most powerful card in the world, but we're going to see it put to some good use here. Look, just get in for 3 in the air, make a little 1-1, attack with the soldier as well. That's just a 1-1. So 4 damage coming across the Keithly. Yeah, look, off to the races.
I don't know if it's good use. I would just go with use.
Sure. You know what? I try to be optimistic. I try to be a glass half full kind of guy, but I think I agree with your assessment there, Eduardo. Your expert assessment. Yes, he put it to use.
Yes. At least one advantage, even though Crawl Harpooner could take down the Fairy Guidemother, one advantage for Gregg here, or rather the choice here is, well, wouldn't I rather have a 4/4 Trampler right now? But it would pan out really poorly to play it here just because of Thomas Hendriks' Devout Decree. So this is going to play really into Thomas Hendriks' plan.
All right, so Pelt Collector picks up a token, or a counter, I should say, from the Spellbreaker, and it's going to come in as a 3/3 haste.
Yeah, we've seen Gregg prioritize damage over slightly larger board presence.
I like that. Nice and proactive, getting on the front foot.
It makes sense as well when you know your opponent has a bunch of giant killers.
Yep, that's very true. Also keeping it below that key 3 or 4 power, I should say.
However, Questing Beast does a good job of not just bashing in for a bunch of damage, but it blocks that board beautifully. There's not really a card in the Gruul deck that can deal with Questing Beast profitably, apart from something like Domri's Ambush, which would definitely come in a matchup like this.
I mean, look, you've got the Lovestruck Beast to block it, which is fine, but you're still trading 1 for 1 there. I know what you mean. You want to be up on interactions like that, and it's difficult. It's difficult to deal with the Questing Beast profitably, as you say.
But here, Thomas Hendriks deciding to go for Devout Decree instead.
Scry's 1.
It does exile, by the way, so yeah, that Pel Collector is sticking to being a 2/2 for now.
And keeps 1 on top as well. That's a good sign for him. In they come once again. Let's clip in for 3 more damage.
So we just see a bunch of high-power games, and now we're seeing the dregs.
Yeah. This. I mean, if someone tuned in and this was like, is this limited? I don't think it'd be the most unreasonable assumption in the world, to be honest. It's a weird kind of hybrid chaos draft from standard sets or something.
Yeah. And here there was a decision for... Originally, Gregg's plan would have just been to play Questing Beast, since Gruul Harpooner on its own would not be enough. But with access now to Paradise Druid, there's another line of going, you know what, I want to deploy multiple cards this turn, so I'm going to go for Paradise Druid plus Gruul Harpooner, getting rid of Fairy Guide Mother. And that way as well, the Pel Collector can go up to a full 4/4, which I don't mind since I have Questing Beast. So if my opponent has Giant Killer, well, there's 2 choices anyways, and I kind of have to, you know, stretch it as much as I can.
So Keithly now. Gruul Harpoon is going to take down the Fairy Guide Mother. I don't think that's why Keithly has it in the deck. I don't think it's there to contest opposing Guide Mothers, but hey, needs must.
Gregg kind of symbolized that there might not be a pump spell by tapping mana pre-combat, and a player like Thomas Hendriks would have spotted that. I think even if you knew there was a combat trick, you'd almost always block there, since trading a free one for Collision Colossus is probably quite a bit better than the alternatives.
Questy B getting in straight away. And Keithly going to take the damage down to 9 here. So things looking decent for Hendriks, although Keithly does have a Questing Beast of his own.
Yeah, it's going to really come down to what Thomas Hendriks gets off the last card in hand that Once Upon a Time. And that's why we may or may not see, because Gregg Keithly is probably going to run into the red zone with that Questing Beast. There's almost no reason not to. So we're going to see if Thomas Hendriks does. If you see Thomas Hendriks decide to not block a Vigilant creature that would trade, it's because Thomas is looking at the Once Upon a Time and trying to calculate the odds of drawing into that Giant Killer.
I think you just snap off the trade here, though. I think you just snap it off. The thing is, you're ahead on the transaction. You got in for 4 with your Questing Beast, and your opponent didn't. So I think you quit while you're ahead.
It's actually really close because both players are so close in resources and so close on the board that on a spot like this, yeah, I totally understand Thomas Hendriks' block.
Right. I mean, he's a better player than me, so I'm gonna go with it. Here's a Zertar Goblin as well, coming down as a 3/3.
Yeah, and now, well, it really depends. That Once Upon a Time has to deliver.
All right, let's spin the wheel. Let's have a look at what we're working with here. Hendriks on 11. Going to cast Once Upon a Time, and let's see how good this story is. Tell me a story, Papa Hendriks. Tell me a story.
It's a very bad story.
It's not a very interesting story at all, just a whole lot of lands. What is this? Is this a story about landscape surveying or something? Hendriks, come on, my dude.
And now there's going to be, and that really was the key card of the match. Now that we've seen this, Thomas Hendriks is essentially deciding between Shepherd of the Flock, which is not exciting, or going for Edgewall Innkeeper and hoping to draw a bunch of adventure creatures. So it's, do you get the card that clearly is going to be much better now? Or do you go, you know what, there might be a turn or two more of this, so I need to go for Edgewall Innkeeper and hope.
It's going to be Shepherd. It's going to be the Shepherd of the Flock here. So a 3/1. Or maybe bounce that Questing Beast, doesn't really do anything. And this is the thing, now the Questing Beast's trade-off, Hendriks can play his 3/1. He needed something better off of that Once Upon a Time. He really did. A very disappointing outcome.
Yeah, and a free one, I mean, it trades for the free and the free 2, which is why Thomas decided to go for it. Since after all, the 2/1/1s wouldn't do it. But I don't. That Castle Ardenville is unfortunately not going to do it. You're not playing against a control deck. Your opponent is drawing a bunch of gigantic creatures. Like making 1/1s is not really going to be the name of the game.
I mean, this card is so good in so many matchups, but this is not it. The Gruul deck can put so much pressure on. We've seen that at the previous Mythic Championship. We've seen how just a critical mass of haste creatures means that you don't get that breathing room to kind of rebuild and repair, Eduardo.
Yeah, and here for sure, I think we're going to just see 2 blocks like this. And this.
Yeah, I like
this
this.
makes sense.
I like this. Hendriks is keeping himself in it, but I tell you what, he needs something off the top of the library, especially if Keithly's going to play another threat. There it is, Gruul Spellbreaker. Things looking dire for the Dutchman. Let's see if he can find something good off the top. What was that?
It was a green card.
Quick flash of the card. Didn't get a good look at it. Was it a Questing Beast? No. I think it was a Once Upon... No, because he would have cast that.
That's a good question.
Okay.
What is it?
Pelt Collector off the top here for Keithly. He's going to rumble for 6. And for 4 mana, 5 mana, now it's a human token from the Castle Ardenvale.
It's a Paradise Druid killer. You might as well trade, right? Get rid of that, the Ifrit off the board.
And there's another Pelt Collector here. Probably would have been better to play that one pre-combat, but that's all right. Okay.
Oh, it was an Innkeeper, so Thomas Hendriks decided not to deploy it just in case Gregg was holding on to removal. Make sure you draw
Very
a
good.
card.
Love it. All right, so cycles that Fairy Guide Mother, finds a white card.
It's a very good white card.
Has he found the Giant Killer?
It's not quite that good. It's still pretty decent, though.
Oh, Venerated Loxodon. Love to see that.
Yeah, and making the other creatures 2/2s against Pelt Collector can be pretty important, but that's a Questing Beast. That's going to allow Gregg Keithly to continue the pressure on Thomas Hendriks.
So once again, we just talked about the capacity of this Gruul deck to pile on pressure and more pressure off the top of the deck thanks to all the haste creatures. Pelt Collector grows to a 2/2, and now Keithly's got some very nice-looking attacks here.
Wow, and you mentioned that the Pelt Collector pre-combat wouldn't have mattered, but that would have been lethal damage.
I mean, I think it very much would have mattered had he cast it pre-combat, and here we're seeing why now. Hendriks going to be knocked down to 1 after this block. Loxidated Veneron is put in front of the Questing Beast. That's just what me and my friends call it. And back to Hendriks, who needs a miracle. Something off the top of the deck that's going to get him out of this. And it's a Giant Killer.
Giant Killer, draw a card, kill a creature.
That's a pretty good card, dude. That's a pretty good card.
Who needs Wicked Wolf?
So Giant Killer is going to be a Stone Cold 2 for 1. Hendriks on 1. He is dead to Bone Crusher Giant off the top. He is dead to a Skargan Hellkite, perhaps not quite, but there are a lot of cards for Gregg Keithly that are going to do a lot of damage. That's a Once Upon a Time. That's going to dig him closer to the resolution of this match. And we have a bunch of haste creatures there. I saw Zertar Goblin, and I saw what looked like a Gruul Spellbreak. I tell you what, Keithly's playing his cards very close to his chest in a very literal sense here, my friends.
It's essentially Gruul Spellbreaker here. The other card is not as good, and you have nothing else to cast. Just for show, you're taking your time.
All right, yeah, giving us the old slow roll. Bit of an Oscar-worthy performance there from Keithly as he picks up the Spellbreaker, can cast it this turn.
And here, with haste, that would give 2 free frees, but one you could chump block and one you could double block.
As the Pelt Collector would also pick up a counter if Keithly remembers. So this one, poised on a knife edge here, mate.
This is yes, I would attack in this spot because while, yes, you're going to lose your free Trampler in the process, you get rid of that Edgewall Innkeeper.
Yep, and that's huge. Questing Beast in hand for Hendriks here. That's a great defensive play, in addition to also putting on pressure.
It does everything you need to. In a tight race like this,
It is. It's the Shane Watson of Magic the Gathering. It's just an absolute, it's a beautiful all-rounder.
Yeah, and here you're going to go with, this is actually a pretty tough block because if you kind of have to block with all creatures anyways, so I kind of like this. Actually, I wonder if the Innkeeper should have been the one you sacrificed, because with Fairy Guide Mother, you avoid a top deck Skargan Hellkite no matter what.
All right, well, back to Hendriks now. Questing Beast in hand, just to land off the top. That's not what he was wanting to see, but the Beast is great here. It means that Hendriks can put some pressure on while not giving up any defensive positioning. And so Keithly is now the one who needs a little bit of kindness from the top of his deck.
Yeah, and the big question here for Thomas Hendriks is, I know there's infinite amount of haste creatures in Gregg Keithly's deck. But do I just attack with both creatures because it puts Gregg Keithly on chump block, hoping that Gregg misses this turn?
Oh, but man, there are so many haste creatures. There are so many haste creatures. He's going to feel like an absolute turkey if Keithly rips a right creature like a Zertar Goblin or a Gruul Spellbreaker. I mean, the game's basically over if we see Skargan Hellkite, right?
Yeah, but you lose to Skargan Hellkite anyways. You lose to Collision Colossus anyways. And
Yep, on the
like
front foot.
Yeah.
He's getting in there, attacking. Love
Yeah.
it. All
Yeah.
offense, no
Because Questing
defense.
Beast would also kill you since Spell Collector has Trample, so you're losing only to Spellbreaker and Zertar Goblin, so I really like this.
All right, off the top, Gregg Keithly needs something special. Land in hand for him. Let's see what the new card was. He's given us the Yam Wing Chun slow roll here, my friends. Show us what you got.
I can see it on the side. It's not very exciting.
Oh, it's just the Paradise Druid. Gregg Keithly going out with a whimper rather than a bang.
We still get a draw step. Unless
All right. All right, Hendriks here. What can he find? Off the top, it's a land. Nothing exciting about that one, but still going to line up these attacks. Force Keithly to block here. He can block with the Edgewall Innkeeper because Keithly has to block the Questing Beast with the Pelt Collector. That's a forced block. He has to do that to stay alive.
Yeah, the Pelt Collector is the only creature capable of blocking Questing Beast here. And actually, at free life, you could take the 2 damage here.
Oh, maybe he's going to do that. Maybe he does. He's going to go down to 1. He's going to go down to 1, so both players on 1 life. It all depends what is on the top of Gregg Keithly's library. Huh! One time. What has he found?
It's Skargan
Hellkite. He's found the big dragon. He's even got the double red thanks to Paradise Druid. And in the grand tradition of 4/4 dragons everywhere, Gregg Keithly sails to victory on his mighty Skargan Hellkite. What a thrilling conclusion to that game and indeed to that match, Eduardo. I mean, Thomas Hendriks, full credit to him, fought till the bitter end, but Keithly
I thought Thomas
came up trumps.
Yeah, I thought Thomas played that beautifully with the one. There was one decision I wasn't sure on, and it was Innkeeper or Guide Mother.
Yep.
And the Guide Mother surviving would have changed it.
It ended up being a bit of a punishment there. But look, well played, GG and WP to Thomas Hendriks there because he certainly gave it his all. And hopefully we'll be seeing a little bit more of the Flying Dutchman in the meantime. Right now, however, we are going to chuck it over to Rich and Maria on the desk before we head, of course, straight into round 6 in the coming time. Stick with us. It's over to Rich and Maria.